S.A., what stood out to you most in Game 6?
That the better team won. There's no way around that. We got to give credit where credit is due to the Indiana Pacers. Props to them. They were the better team. They knew they had a home court situation. They couldn't afford to lose Game 6 because they didn't want to come back to the Garden for Game 7. They came out in the third quarter and outscored the Knicks by 11 points. Pascal Siakam shot like 57% from the field, scored about 10 points in the third quarter. Thomas Bryant, of all people, comes off the bench, hits a couple of threes, scores 8 pivotal points, and the Indiana Pacers began to run him out of there. And then Halliburton came in and closed in the fourth quarter. The New York Knicks were undermanned. But, you find yourself looking at the series, Molly, Eminem, and it's like there is this feeling that there is one that got away. Yes, Indiana was the better team because they were deeper. They're exceptionally well coached by Rick Carlisle. They came into the postseason having 11 players averaging at least 15 minutes a game. And we knew that they were prepared to go deep and to make this series a long series because they were confident that their legs would be fresh and they would be able to outlast the New York Knicks, and that ended up exactly being what happened. But you do find yourself looking at that Game 1 where the Knicks had a 17-point lead with over 6 minutes left, a 14-point lead with 2 minutes and 50 seconds left, a 9-point lead with 52 seconds left, and said if the New York Knicks hadn't won that game, in all likelihood, there would be a Game 7 at Madison Square Garden tonight. That's what you find yourself looking at. So maybe tomorrow we'll feel a bit differently. Maybe next week we'll feel a bit differently. But this morning, right now, as we speak, it just feels like that's the one that got away.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've gone over and over in my head in terms of which game is the one that bothers me most. For all of the reasons you mentioned, S.A., I get why people point to Game 1. But I think Game 2, you had the opportunity to respond. But that's not where we need to go. I get and I could point to things that I hope the Knicks take the opportunity to evaluate and improve on moving forward. But I do think that, to your point, the statement you said, the Pacers are a really good team that was underrated largely coming into this one. I mean, they and the Oklahoma City Thunder have the best record since January 1, and here they are in the finals. I think this was a bad matchup for the Knicks, and I know people are pointing to the defense in terms of the Knicks, but to me, the defense had not been particularly stellar all season. It was the offense that crashed out. You point to the points off of turnovers. You point to the humongous disparity in terms of fast break points. And yes, that is a calling card of the Indiana Pacers. Kudos to them, but you got to figure out a way to stay a little bit closer in that category. So I give the Pacers more credit, I think, in this one than I give the Knicks to blame. Not that there is not plenty to evaluate from the Knicks in terms of how you can be better. And obviously the historic Game 1, you can certainly sit atop of that in terms of the things that you look at in terms of how we got here.
S.A.?
Well, before we get to Jay, just to crystallize Monica's points off turnovers. The New York Knicks got outscored 34-13 in Game 6, 140 to 61 in the series. Fast break points. The New York Knicks got outscored 25-10 in Game 6, 106 to 48 in the series. The New York Knicks bench got outscored by Indiana's bench, 210 to 117. And the Pacers reserves shot 51% from the field compared to 39% for the New York Knicks. I think just to be a little bit petty, Eminem and Jay and Molly, one of the things that really, really ticked me off, I was in a stupor to begin with as the game was ending, just sitting there watching it. But what really raked my nerves, that damn Landry Shamet hits 3 consecutive threes at the end when it means absolutely nothing. Absolutely, positively nothing. You understand the game is decided. The crowd is celebrating. You know the game is over. They're about to be outside on the street, partying their butt off. They're going back to the finals for the first time in 25 years. And this dude waits until like the last minute of the 2 minutes of the game to hit back-to-back-to-back threes. I almost threw something at my TV, and y'all know me enough to know that my TV's pretty big and pretty fly, pretty expensive. I almost broke it because I was really ticked off that happened. I'm like, now you're going to hit those shots. Ooh, it ticked me off, but that's just me being petty.
I get it.
Jay, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Morning.
What do you want to add here?
No pocket handkerchief today, Molly. So just
Oh
want
my
to
God.
That was
saying,
hilarious,
By,
y'all.
by the
You mean no
way,
piece of paper? No piece of paper
people
that
love
got
that
from the fax
moment, Jay.
machine?
if you would like
Or the
to call
printer
me
Like
out,
was-
you're a
saying that,
man
what
of the people.
Molly did,
Hey,
yes.
Jay's a man of the
I
people.
made you relatable, Jay, okay? You're not so bougie anymore. I was doing you a favor. Go ahead.
You know how many people in
all right,
America are going to imitate that, by the way? You know how many people in America are going to imitate that, by
hack.
the way?
It's
They're
all
going to
over
go to no
TikTok
store,
already.
It's a
no
hack.
department store and buy a pocket square. They're going to go to a printer and print it out and imitate Jay Williams. He's going to start a new damn trend. Y'all mark my words.
I say, let's just start this whole co. Let's just go on that together. We can split that equity. I'm with you.
Me too.
This dude always looking for a side hustle. You looked clean
Always.
regardless, Jay. You are unbelievable. Go ahead.
Thanks, Molly. I've been waiting all weekend to talk to you about this, and Eminem, you too. Let's just call it what it is. I don't feel like you could win playing 1990s basketball in a 2025 league versus an Indiana team that is built upon pace, spacing, and versatility. When I watch Tibbs, I feel like he is elite at coaching effort and grit. And then when I watch Carlisle, I feel like he is great at tempo and geometry. And it feels as if this style of basketball in which Tibbs plays, if you don't have the perfect personnel for how you want to defend, how you want to play offense, I'm watching a more evolutionized style of basketball that the NBA has kind of grown through strategy-wise over the years. If you want to take that next iteration, and I know personnel is not the same of Golden State and where the league is going. And I like the disruptive nature of how the Knicks play, but it just feels like this style felt inevitable against the style of the Knicks, where everybody at times just sat and watched Jalen Brunson. And I'm not saying that it couldn't be efficient, but it felt like the two contrasts, that one was old and one was new and upcoming. And the new upcoming style is the one that's going to be here for a long time. And I don't feel like Tibbs' style is the one that's going to get you over the hump with this type of personnel.
Stephen A., we all expected it to be Cleveland and Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals, right? So with that in the back of your mind, do you think the Knicks over or underachieved this year?
Well, I think they overachieved. I think that when you get to within 2 games of an NBA Finals, they overachieved, because even though we walked into this season before a game was played anticipating that they had one of the best starting fives, and as a result, they would be in the conference finals. As the season went on, pretty early in the season when we saw Cleveland start off with 15-0, we saw Boston and Cleveland on a collision course. And then over the course of the regular season, we saw the New York Knicks against Cleveland, against Boston, and against Oklahoma City literally go 0-10, winless in 10 encounters against the 3 top teams in the NBA. And so as the postseason approached and we recognized the fact that Cleveland was going to be a clear number 1 seed and Boston would be a number 2 seed, it was a foregone conclusion in all of our eyes that the New York Knicks were going home in the second round again, just like they did last year. Matter of fact, it was going to be worse because they wouldn't take the Boston Celtics past 5 games. And then the series started, and we saw the Knicks steal not just game 1, but game 2 in Boston. We said, wait a damn minute. They actually can win this series, and they ended up winning. So based on that premise that the reigning defending NBA champions with a number 2 seed in the NBA, and number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, and they had home court advantage, and the New York Knicks knocked them off. I think some of the luster was taken off of it because we saw Jason Tatum go down in game 4. Boston win game 5 without him and then come back and get obliterated by the Knicks in game 6. But what we're forgetting is that same game that Jason Tatum went down, it was a little under 3 minutes left, if I remember correctly, and the New York Knicks were en route to going up 3-1 on a Boston Celtics team. Although Porzingis was compromised, they were still loaded enough with their $200-300 million superstars to believe that the New York Knicks were pulling off something special by beating them. And so because of that reality, I would look at the New York Knicks and say we didn't expect them to be in the conference finals because we didn't expect them to get past Boston, but they did that. The problem is that they ended up losing to the same team this year that they lost to last year. And this year they were supposed to be better, and they weren't. So in the end, against Indiana, that is. And so we look at it from that standpoint, and that takes some of the luster off of it. But I still say when you come within 2 games of an NBA Finals, nobody anticipated that once we knew that they were going to run into Boston in the postseason. And that's why I say they overachieved.
Stephen A., your team is officially here. We are here. It's great to say Knick fans have championship expectations. Yeah, they underachieved. That's
I
okay.
knew you was about to flip script, Jay, but go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. They underachieved. That's cool. That means y'all are knocking on the door, and you have to do little things to make sure that you knock on the door again next year and you get over the hump. Let me tell you why they underachieved. All the things you just said about where everybody thought the Knicks were going, that is accurate. But circumstances have changed. As we continue to progress, data points revealed themselves that changed expectations and the opportunity from what it was before to what it currently was. When Porzingis had an issue, nobody knew what the hell was going on. He was a Swiss Army knife for the Boston Celtics. He unlocks their offense. When they got drew Detroit, everybody, oh, this is the series that helps you grow your team, gets them ready for that game. And when Porzingis wasn't his thing, and then when Jason Tatum went down, expectations changed. That is good. That is okay. Accept that. Don't run away from that, because then a door opened. And when that door opened, it was like, okay, now we're going against Indiana. We can beat Indiana. We're a higher seed. We've had some battles with them throughout the course of the regular season. We have to be good defensively. We're going to be in these battles. You were up 20 in game one. You were up 20 in game one. Expectations changed, right? You win that game. All of a sudden, even if it goes to 7, you're going back to Madison Square Garden for game 7. So my thing is, it's underachieved because also I feel like it underachieved execution-wise. If there were details that were executed. So we talked about the bench. Let's just play devil's advocate, Monica. If that bench was utilized throughout the course of the regular season, just a little bit more, do you think they would be better apt when the playoffs came around? Do you think guys would have, we always talk about reps, Monica. You only know what you know when you're getting reps and practicing it. If you got more reps throughout the regular season, do you think things might have been a little bit different instead of just activating that bench in game 3 because you were forced to? So there were tactical things that were, hey, look, the Knicks did well, but he got out coached. There were tactical things that I feel like from an execution perspective, the Knicks were underachieving because they should be in the NBA Finals, y'all. And everybody's telling me that I know Indiana's a better team. I think Indiana out-executed New York when it all came down towards it. But I can't just say Indiana's a better team. I think they got out-executed, frankly.
I'm glad you circled back to that, Jay, because I was about to be like, you said that Indiana was the better team. I agree in the underachievement in the execution. I think that part I will give you. But on the season in totality, it has been steady progress. I am in the city. I'm with this team. I'm talking to fans. The sentiment for Boston was if you get to 6 and lose, that will be respectable. That was the legitimate sentiment based on what had been seen during the course of the regular season. So you got past Boston. I get it. You underachieve as far as execution versus the Indiana Pacers. But to label the entire season as basically a failure, because if you didn't overachieve, you failed, right?
No, it's not a failure, Monica, but circumstances changed. The door opened.
Well, let's put it in simpler terms. You could say the Knicks underachieved because they lost to the Pacers. They overachieved because they got past the reigning defending NBA champion Boston Celtics at the time. People did not expect them to beat the Boston Celtics. The point is they beat the Boston Celtics. Coming in, listen, Jay, we have clips, brother. We have receipts. You were on camera. All of us were on camera, not Monica McNutt, because we want to make sure she maintains employment because we know how petty Mr. Dolan can be. You understand what I'm saying? No, she didn't pick against them, but I did. I mean, all of us were like, yo, there is no way on earth they are going to beat the Boston Celtics. Universally, across the NBA landscape, nobody outside of Knick fandom was picking the Knicks to beat the Boston Celtics. They beat the Boston Celtics and as a result got to the conference finals. Yes, they underachieved by blowing the series against the Pacers because if they win game 1, the very worst case scenario, I believe, would have been a game 7 tonight at Madison Square Garden. There would have been a game 7 tonight at Madison Square Garden. Coming into the series, I picked the Knicks to win in 7 games. I did not believe that they would blow a 17-point lead, then a 14-point lead, then a 9-point lead in the last minute to the Indiana Pacers in game 1. But that's what happened. And ultimately, that changed the trajectory of this series. So they did underachieve because you lost to the Indiana Pacers. But they did overachieve by getting past Boston because nobody expected that.
But Stephen A. didn't that, and I agree with you. There are receipts of both you and I saying we thought Boston was going to win. I'm with you all the way. But didn't we change our tune when Jason Tatum went down? That's what I'm talking about. Data points changing.
But time out. But I'm saying to you, the series was over. The series was practically over because when Jason Tatum went down, the Knicks were up 2-1. They were about to go up 3-1 because they had a significant lead in the last 2 minutes when he went down. You know, so because of that, I'm assuming that all of us are looking at the Knicks being up 3-1 when Jason Tatum went down. We're not giving the Boston Celtics game 4. You know, we're looking at the fact that the New York Knicks had a 3-1 lead because they had a comfortable lead with under 3 minutes left or around 3 minutes left when Jason Tatum got hurt and his season ended. So we're assuming the New York Knicks had that game and they were going back to Boston up 3-1 without Jason Tatum. But they were going to be up 3-1 with him. So the New York Knicks were overachieving, period, in the series against Boston. They underachieved against the Indiana Pacers.
Look, the folks in Indiana, I must say, were lovely and very kind to me. I'm not trying to big up the Pacers, obviously, considering my affiliation with the Knicks. But I do think the crux of this issue for me, Jay, is I still think we are underselling how good this Pacers team is. I don't think that this... Yes, there are things that the Knicks could have done better, but I am not sure that even achieving those marks that you and I just discussed, Jay, that Carlisle and company still would not have had an answer. I mean, Tony Bradley, I don't know, like, until he got hurt, terrific. Stephen A. mentioned Thomas Bryant coming off the bench. Jarris Walker, for that matter. Like, Rick Carlisle is pushing all the right buttons. To me, I'm struggling with this conversation because I still think we are underselling how good the Pacers are. I don't think they're going to... I
don't think I am.
But I think they are very good. I mean, we're coming to it now, S.A., but this is why, to me, it's not an underachievement this year. This is a overachievement this year.
Well, walking into the series, you had guys like Big Perk swearing up and down the Indiana Pacers had no chance. I had them losing in 7 games. I knew that they could win 3 games in this series. I saw this as a 7-game series. I thought that they would give the Knicks all they can handle because their offensive prowess is not to be denied. They have multiple dudes that can put the ball in the hole. You've got Turner. You've got Siakam. You've got Halliburton, obviously. You got Nesmith and Nembhard. And we saw what Nesmith could do with his 6 threes in Game 1, including 3 in the last minute or so. I think his last 20 seconds, for crying out loud. These brothers can put the ball in the hole. And we know that Rick Carlisle is a basketball genius at coaching. Like you said, Jay, tempos, things schematically, utilizing his bench. Think about what we're talking about with Tom Thibodeau, which I think is the only critical thing to say about Tom Thibodeau. We questioned his use of his bench. Now, he had to divert to that in this series because of foul trouble on the part of Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson as well, particularly in Game 4. So you looked at that series and you said, what the hell is going on with the New York Knicks? Defensively, there were liabilities, both of them, Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns at times. So you had to ultimately use your bench. You had to change things up when you put Mitchell Robinson in the starting lineup. We look at all of those things about Tibbs, and that's unconventional for him. It went against the grain, but he had to try something. Whereas a guy like Rick Carlisle, it was nothing new because he had 11 guys that he gave at least 15 minutes to a game throughout the regular season. So again, this is a coach that is a championship coach, and he showed the difference between himself being a champion and Tom Thibodeau being a head coach that has never coached in an NBA Finals. But I still don't necessarily look at it or that. I think the biggest culprit now, to me, when I think about a post-game conference and people that I want to hear from, I want to hear from Mikal Bridges. And what's he going to do to elevate his level of play? The New York Knicks gave up 5 first-round picks for this man, 4 of them unprotected. If they're not able to get Giannis Antetokounmpo this year, that'll be a big, if not the reason why, because they gave up a boatload of their assets. They wanted to appease Jalen Brunson,
we'll get into all
who
of
took
that
about
just
$100 million less and stuff like that. They wanted to appease him, and they may not get the Greek Freak because of that. That's Leon Rose. That's Leon Rose, not Tom Thibodeau.
All right, save some of that, Stephen A., because we'll have more on Thibodeau, we'll have more on the roster, we'll have more on Giannis in just a bit. Jay, final word here. I got to get in a commercial break.
Yeah, big brother, all I want to say to you is the same thing with Ant, when Ant was like, I'll be fine, right? And everybody would say, there's no foregone conclusion that you're going to be back, right? We know how things can change in this league very quickly. Right. You talk about GA. Who knows where he goes to in the Eastern Conference? You talked about the other day. Detroit's still coming. They're coming up. Orlando's coming up. Indy's there. Cleveland's probably going to run it back. All I'm saying, I don't want this to be a scenario because the data points open themselves up for the Knicks to make this run to the NBA Finals that Knicks fans could look back on and say, damn, the door opened up for us.
We missed one.
They will.
We missed one.
That's just how it
Missed one.
goes. They will look back
I know.
at it that way. Yeah. That's how it goes.
That's why I say underachieving this year. Underachieving.
Nah.
Okay.